Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 230. Now, if you are listening on the day of release, it's the 24th of January. So, Christmas, New Year is but a distant memory, and we are now well into 2025. And we have a fantastic returning guest to catch up with. But first of all, what I'll do is just touch base with the usual co-host of the podcast, Mr. Peter Lance. How are you doing, Pete? You okay?
I'm doing very well. It's funny, actually, because 24th of January, so this is roundabout. I was talking to Ben Morris, friend of the show, the other day, because we're doing a talk on the 6th of Feb, so in a couple of weeks. Or next week, in fact. Is that next week? No, 2 weeks. And the guy who was setting it all up said, "Oh, it'll be just around the time. It'll be just after that Blue Monday. You know, the Monday that's the most depressing day of the year, apparently." And we just both went, "That's a load of horse shit, isn't it?"
Yeah.
It's a marketing ploy to sell holidays, basically. Apparently, there's an equation for it and everything. Ben wrote something about it on LinkedIn, just saying how it was all a load of rubbish. But somebody came up with an equation for it who worked for some travel firm, so they could put it out in the market and sell more holidays to people who were supposedly depressed. It's just
Or
like,
get more people, or get people to buy more stuff that they don't need, like
exactly.
retail therapy, or whatever.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
do you sell stuff in mid-January when everyone's like spent all the money at Christmas and all that sort of stuff? It's like you tell them that they need to, because and then they go on about it on every single radio program and radio station and all that, about how this is the day, so they play music to go with it and everything, and it's like just a collective depression for the country. It's like, well, why don't you just play some upbeat stuff? You know what I mean? So anyway,
Yeah, well,
we're
like
gonna have an upbeat conversation instead, aren't we? That's what we're gonna do.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the radio. I try and avoid all that as much as possible. But yeah, like you say, you just kind of get told what to think and what to feel, don't you? So you just
Yeah.
try. I know our guest today is very good at switching off from the external noise and the external clutter. So we are gonna. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do first of all. I'm gonna say that it's our guest. Well, firstly, we'll say a quick hello to him, Nick Rainbird. How are you doing, Nick?
Thanks, James. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Excellent. Well, we will just, I'll quickly, before we get going, I will say that Nick has been on the podcast before. He was back on episode 195, and the episode was called The Healing Power of Nature. And it was a really interesting kind of episode. And I was thinking about this earlier, actually, when I was at work. It was kind of like, I don't want this to sound that, don't want to take taken the wrong way, but it was a kind of a simple, straightforward call to action for us living in today's society to disconnect from technology, as we've just touched upon, listening to the radio, watching the news, social media, that kind of thing, and to reconnect with nature. And as I said, the podcast was called The Healing Power of Nature, and it was all about spending time outside, spending time in nature, spending time in woodlands, forests, if you've got a garden, or even, I think what was really great about it was Nick was really kind of inclusive and understanding of the way a lot of people live. And it was like, well, even if you've got a small balcony or some flat house plants or things outside on the windowsill, or just the power of nature and tending to nature and being in and amongst and immersed in nature. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I would go back and listen to episode 195, either before or after this one, because this episode we're going to talk to about something with Nick that's a bit different, and we kind of touched on it towards the end of the last episode. But yeah, Nick, do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what you've been up to recently? Because the last episode we just said was probably recorded about 8 months ago, when we spoke to you last, and then fairly recently you've done something pretty special in terms of your own education, your own experience, and kind of on a similar page or a similar path to what we talked about last time. But yeah, what have you been up to?
Well, I've had the pleasure and the absolute honour, actually, of joining a small tribe of people around the world, about 1,200 of us in total, in becoming a certified Wim Hof method instructor. That was the purpose of going to Poland to complete my training with with a group of 4 master instructors and 27 other people, and a very global mix. There are guys from South America and North America, people from all over Europe as well. And I think I was only one of two English there, but Scotland, Wales, Ireland. Yeah, it's a fantastic mix of people, and I think it's the most amazing group of people I've had the pleasure to spend time with. It's a
Amazing.
fantastic experience.
And we touched upon this. I think you just sort of either you just enrolled or you just were starting your kind of studies and things when we spoke last time. I suppose for people who may not have heard, I mean, I think quite a few people now will have heard of Wim Hof or Wim Hof method, and I know he's probably most within the kind of, I suppose, the public eye, most connected with cold therapy and cold water therapy and being in the cold and that sort of thing. I know he's done some mainstream TV and things now as well, but what is the Wim Hof method, and what does it consist of, just for our listeners and for us as well?
Well, going back to a comment you made on the introduction about it being a very different thing from the forest bathing and the nature connection, it is actually, yeah, it sounds very different, but it's actually deepening your connection to nature. It's connecting with your own internal nature, taking us back to a time when our ancestors lived with the daily threat of predation, extreme weathers, environmental issues. Were they going to be able to eat? Which gave our ancestors acute daily stresses, short-term acute daily stresses, which gave a huge boost, strangely enough, to the immune system and resilience, and helped develop our sort of inner strength, if you like, and our sense of survival. In the modern world, life has got simpler and simpler, especially over the last 200 years, where things are just too easy. They're handed to us on a plate. We can come in, put the heating on or the air conditioning if it's too hot. We can put on X amount of layers of clothing, shut the front door, and then be shut off. But what this has created is it's dampened our immune systems, it's dampened our resilience to stress, and actually made us a less healthy, less energetic species, if you like. And it's happened in a very short space of time. And you couple that with bad diet choices, and the sort of, I think, is the illegal advertising and marketing of highly processed foods, alcohol, tobacco, things like that. It all sounds a bit pious, but I mean, these things have helped to weaken our immune systems, weaken our resilience. What the Wim Hof method does is take you back to what our ancestors have experienced, because that is still in our DNA, the ability to reduce our own internal low level inflammation, which leads to a lot of modern diseases such as diabetes, certain types of cancer, heart problems, obviously obesity, mental health issues. We know problems there going through the roof, and things like certain forms of dementia are actually very 20th century diseases, due to an increased level of comfort and making life easier.
This is interesting. This is interesting, right? Because I talk with Sean about this a lot, about kids having ADHD and stuff like that in schools, because she's a teacher, right? So it's like, was that ever a thing in the past? And she was like, yeah, there were kids who had that. And it's like, yeah, but were there as many? Because there was always like kids with dyslexia and stuff like that got left behind in school, didn't they? Because it wasn't really diagnosed and they didn't know about it and stuff like that. So she says, well, ADHD's always been there, and it's like, yeah, but has it, like, is it now like a more of a modern thing? It's more prevalent. So there's that, but there's also, like you're saying about marketing. I was talking about Blue Monday earlier, marketing of foods and stuff like that, and you said this has all happened over a very, very, very short period the last couple of 100 years. So how easy or how hard is it, or how easy is it? Because I'm fully aware of this, how you make life more comfortable, and then just more things show up, to, like, more problems show up because you're too comfortable, and like you say, your immune system suppressed. But then people say, yeah, but the medical system, whatever you want to call it, is progressed so much, medical science and all that sort of stuff. So it doesn't matter, because that'll look after you. And it's like, yeah, but like, that's great, but do you want to thrive? It's kind of like, they wouldn't need that, or you would need it, but you wouldn't need it as much if you just look after yourself, sort of thing, right? And there was another thing there as, oh, that was it, because I've spoke about this with Sean before and other people, and they say, yeah, but people are living longer, so therefore they're getting ill. These diseases are showing up because people are getting older. So like dementia, people didn't live to dementia because they didn't get old enough years ago, right? And it's like, well, okay, that might be a certain part of it, but lifestyle has a massive part to play in it as well. And this is like, these are the conversations I have all of the time. And it's easy for people to just say, people are living longer, therefore these diseases show up. So what's your experience of it? And how easy is it to reverse this process? And not for the human race, just for the individual person, because then if everyone does it, then the human race reverses, right?
Just touching briefly on your point about the pharmacological interventions, companies like Pfizer, they've been around about a century and a half or so, yeah, have never once cured a disease, but they have treated plenty of symptoms because that's what they're interested in. They're not interested in a cure. They're interested in symptoms that they can then keep plugging their medications for you. Okay. So how easy is it? You can actually change your, I wouldn't say DNA as such, but you can change the way your body reacts to stress and illness in a matter of weeks. I've been practicing the Wim Hof method now 5 to 7 days a week since January time. I have had one minor cold this year, whereas I would normally get about the flu and 3 or 4 very heavy colds during the course of a year. And from a mental health point of view, I have not had a down day. And that for me would be very unusual in the past. Yeah. So I've been on a sort of dopamine trip for the best part of 12 months. My reactiveness has all but disappeared. I try and be reactive occasionally, swear at someone that pulls out on me, and then I think, well, that didn't work. I didn't actually feel angry about that at all. Just thought I'd see how it felt, but it didn't. So things like that, And if you follow the 3 pillars of Wim Hof, which is one, your mindset, which is basically about commitment. You've got to commit to regular practice. It's no good, as with physical training and exercise and education, you can't just dip in occasionally and think that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. So mindset is the main thing. The second pillar is the deep breath work. Okay. What you do with the deep breath work is you temporarily change your acidic body, your acidic levels in your body to alkaline for a very brief period of time, literally while you're doing the exercises, and then you rebalance that. But during that time, as you're expelling all the CO2 out of your body, and with each round of the deep breathing, you're expelling more and more CO2. So you're virtually banishing it from your body. And then when you start your recovery breath, you're basically readjusting back to the normal acidic alkaline level, because obviously you can't be too far one way or the other. So that helps massively reduce low-level inflammation. It gives a huge boost to energy. It gets extra oxygen into your brain. So it's good for brain development as well as sending fresh blood there. And as we know, that helps with the recovery process, flushing out all the rubbish. It is a huge boost to your mindset and your mental health, and it kind of gives you real mental clarity. And then you pair that up with the cold exposure, either cold showers or the ice tub that we know now are very popular. That gives a great boost to your resilience and your immune system as well. Because, say, for example, if you were to have a hot shower on a normal room temperature day, you step out of the shower, you're going to feel cold because you've had this steaming hot shower. You have a cold shower, you step out, and you're coming back up to that temperature. So you actually feel a lot more leveled and relaxed than that. You're not stressing through excess heat. Things like that, it's little things like that. But yeah, the boost to resilience and immune system, practice it for about 3 weeks, and you're going to notice a difference in the majority of people who give it a go.
Mm. I was just talking to, well, I was just listening actually to a Huberman Lab podcast last few days with Dr. Kelly Starrett, and they're not really talking much about cold exposure, but the bit that I've just listened to today, they are. And I think that one of the main things, because people can argue about the sort of the science behind it and what it's actually doing to, you know, the cells of your body and your brown fat and all this kind of stuff. But what most people will feel and notice straight away is how much of a mood boost it is to actually do the cold. And I've got a client at the gym, Tara, who's got an ice tub, and she's just been doing it. And it's not one that's chilled, so it's kind of an ambient temperature. When the weather's colder, it's colder, and so on. But she did I think 100-day stretch, or more than 100 days of every day, and she almost used your exact phrase that through that period she never had like a down day, you know, like the kind of she, you know, she's had various you know, losses of parents, family recently and stuff like that, and you go through days where you're grieving and issues like that, but she, since she's been doing these tubs, it's just been positive. And I think that you can't sit in an ice, first of all, you can't sit in an ice tub and be depressed, because you get you know, when you're in there,
you haven't got the energy to be
yeah.
depressed because you're too busy.
No, it's like when you're training, when you're having a workout, you know, when you're having a workout, you can't really, you're not, because your mind is in the moment and is in the present. You're focusing on what you're doing in the present. You're not worrying about what's going to happen at work next week or an argument you might have had yesterday, because you are in the moment. So you can't, when you're in there, be down or depressed. But also when you get out, you have this huge boost of, like you mentioned, endorphins and things, where you just feel positive, you know, you just feel different. Something's changed in your physiology and your psychology. So yeah, I mean, and they are very popular now, aren't they? And I know it's kind of and we mentioned marketing, you know, but recently things like, you know, Black Friday and whatever, a couple of months back, you know, loads of these ice tub companies had offers, and I know loads of people who bought them. I don't know how many people will still be using them a few months down the line, but lots of people bought them. Yes, Pete.
How many have you got, James?
Well, I've got one, and Steph's got one as well.
And Steph's got, yeah, you're a two ice tub family, aren't you?
I know, but that's because mine's set at a temperature that's probably too cold for her to go. That's the reason why, because mine is set at a cold temperature, and it would just, she just wanted to start lowering herself down gradually, you know, in terms of temperature, which is a good time to be doing it in the winter, because the temperature gradually gets colder, and then you get some mornings when it's really cold in there, but you're not, you know, jumping straight in at 2 degrees or 3 degrees, you know. Yeah, so you've been doing this for best part of a year, like you said, Nick. And what do you find? What benefits do you get personally from, say take one of these things, which I don't know, all three elements work together, the three pillars, like you said. But if we were to take like the ice tub, for example, what benefits do you, first of all, when do you do it? How often do you do it? How long do you do it for? And kind of what do you feel the benefits are to you, the tangible benefits that you notice in yourself?
Right. So through the summer, I had one that can attach a chiller to, and it's a bit awkward in the summer. All this, I'm going to blow the myth a bit of how easy it is to do an ice bath, because you need a lorry load of ice. and you need to get that temperature down. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do. And the chillers, they're not cheap.
Hmm.
Okay. But I found getting mine down to 2 degrees over the summer, sitting in there for 10 minutes, and like you say, completely switching off, being in the moment, losing the brain mind, and thinking with the heart mind. Um, so I started off at 14 degrees. That's your maximum temperature you want before you start to get the benefits. And I would just drop it a degree a day until I got it down to that 10 degrees, 2 degrees, sorry, and 10 minutes just went by in no time at all. But the benefits begin at 2 minutes, really. If you can get yourself to 2 minutes, gradually build up to 2 minutes, that's all you need to spend in there at a lower temperature.
Mm.
Um, but also you can also do the hot showers, obviously, cold showers, excuse me, which is a lot more accessible to most people. Doing the cold shower, just the same. You build up the amount of time you spend in the cold. So you start off with a hot shower, then go 15 seconds at the end of your hot shower to cold, and so on. It's gradually build that up. And once you get through the gasp reflex time, that first 30 to 90 seconds, you know yourself, James, how quickly your body starts to adapt to a different temperature.
Mm.
Yeah, and it just
And you
becomes
have
the
to
norm.
just, do you just get in? And because the other thing is, I mean, you know, from when you're a kid or going on holiday, and anyone who's lives in England or lives anywhere that's not particularly like Mediterranean or warm, going to the beach like when you're young and going in the sea, and then or a swimming pool. You've got people who try and lower themselves in very gradually, and they put a toe in, and then they gradually try. And then you've
Yeah.
got people who, and I always find it's much better just to jump in and get it over with and immerse yourself. Do you find it that you just, after a while, you just get in, you just get yourself right under there, and you're fine straight away?
Yeah, and this is where a lot of people do actually go wrong by not acclimatizing themselves.
Mm.
And this is where you get that, oh, it's bad for your health, it's bad for your heart, da 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 da. If you've got a pre-existing heart condition, if you have high blood pressure, anything like that at all, you've had a heart attack, heart failure, anything like that, it's not the thing for you to do.
Mm.
Okay. The same applies to ladies who are pregnant. It's not the done thing. It can induce, that shock factor can induce it. Ideally, you want to do a little bit of a warm up before you get in, a bit of movement. And I guess you'll have seen examples of people doing the horse stance.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you start by doing some breaths, but you're breathing longer on the exhale than the inhale. So it's a So you're gradually lowering your heart rate down, and you keep doing those breaths, and while you're getting into the tub, down to your shoulder level. Yeah. So you're making your body become used to the shock before you get in. And when people say, "Oh yeah, it's really bad for you because this guy I know he jumped straight in a lake and had a heart attack and died," yeah, he didn't give himself time to adapt to it. And it's a rare occurrence, I know, but you have to be aware of the safety aspects
Mm.
as well. And that gradual immersion, yeah, it I personally now, yeah, like yourself, straight in there, no problem. Start
Mm.
the clock running, great. This is fantastic. But yeah, some people might only want to start off up to their sort of hip level, waist level, step out. Next time they go a little bit low, and so on. So it's a very personal thing. Your body is your best teacher
Mm.
as to how you immerse yourself, but the regularity of it is what's really key.
Mm. Because what I see, and what I don't really, I'm not an expert at it. I mean, I've read quite a few of the Wim Hof books, and I've obviously been doing the cold stuff myself for quite a while. So I'm speaking more from experience and reading, but not any formal training as such. But I would imagine, because I do see people, it's got this kind of slightly I want to say macho or egotistical thing whereby people sort of say they'll go along to somewhere which has got, like, say, cold therapy, ice tubs, and they'll straight away, if there's one that's like 1 or 2 degrees, they get in the coldest one they can and they stay in there for as long as possible. And it's like a badge of honor that, oh, I went in the 2 degrees and I was in there for 10 minutes or 15 minutes straight off the bat. And I kind of, like you've said, I started mine at kind of 14, 15 degrees, very gradually reduced it. And I know that I can't remember where I heard this, but something like, as a rule of thumb, and again, this isn't something, a concrete rule that has to be kept to, but something like, certainly to begin with, not to exceed the number of minutes um, per degree. So if it's at 10 degrees, 10 minutes. If it's at 6 degrees, 6 minutes. Like you said, 2 degrees, 2 minutes to begin with.
Yes.
I think it's quite a good rule of thumb because it's very simple, it's very easy to understand, and it kind of stops people overdoing it too quickly. Is that something that you find from from what you've done, that people just try and almost like going to the gym, they want to lift as much weight as they physically can on day one, or they first day out running, they want to try and run 10 kilometers, and they've not ran for, so I suppose it's the same as exercise in that way, is it?
Absolutely the same. Yeah, how many times have you picked a barbell off someone's chest who thinks they can bench press every plate? It's it is exactly the same thing. And you might go in there with the ego, which you need to leave at the door, but you might go in there with the ego and you get out thinking, yeah, that was all right, not a problem. But hypothermia starts kicking in after 15 minutes,
Hmm.
and the cold shock response can kick in a little bit sooner than that. So, two mistakes people will make will be not trying to warm up from the inside out. So bringing the blood from the core temperature where it's kept to that regular 37 degrees or thereabouts, and you gradually reintroducing that to the extremities, to the skin, to the surface of the body. Yeah. So they won't do things like the horse stance or the brown fat activation, or even you can use mindset to it. It was a brilliant trick we learned in Poland to use your mind to actually rewarm the body. A phenomenal way to do it.
Oh, you'll have to
But
tell us about that in a minute. That sounds really interesting.
yeah, it's crazy. So basically, they're not letting the blood gradually come back to the body by movement and activating muscles. So they will wrap up in as many layers of clothing as possible. But what they're actually doing by that is actually sending cool blood to the core, which will mix with hot blood, which then reduces your core temperature to potentially dangerous levels.
Hmm.
That's why it has to be that gradual increase. You get out of the ward, so you go straight into a couple of minutes of horse stance. You then put a layer of clothing on, do some more horse stance and so on. So you gradually build it up from there. Okay, it's no good just getting out and getting in your car, putting the blower on and
Hmm.
things like that, because that hypothermia will still kick in.
Hmm.
And hypothermia is something I used to suffer from on a regular basis. Winter racing on the paddle boards, things like that. If I went in the water, that was pretty much game over for me. And I'm very pleased to say that I haven't had hypothermia this year. I've been wearing a lot less clothes in the cold weather, winter earlier this year, so on, and not feeling the effects of it at all. Although Catherine may object to that when I put my cold feet on her back, someone on her leg or something, and she thinks, "You're cold, get off me now." But yeah, it's conditioned my body against hypothermia. It doesn't mean I got cocky about it. You still have to be very careful that you rewarm properly. And as I say, I don't get that gasp reflex anymore from getting in the cold because my body's tuned into it. So that resilience is there. And a great example of it was I think I told you before, I regularly attend the fan dance in Brecon Beacons, which is the SAS selection route. Yeah. So I've always come off the mountain, winter or summer, feeling absolutely rotten, hypothermia, dehydrated, depressed, the whole lot, and thinking I'm never going to do this again. So this summer, the fan dance it might as well have been a winter one. There were people being taken off the mountain. They had to shut the route early and get people off the mountain with hypothermia, sideways, hailstones, the lot. I just thought, well, I'm going to make a piece of the mountain and get on with it. And that's what I did. And all the way through, I was smiling, I was laughing with people, I was having a chat, I was starting to help people, just had a t-shirt on, didn't get any fatigue, the joints weren't busting, going up Jacob's ladder, things like that. And I came off the mountain, and just as a matter of interest, I started a stopwatch when I was across the start line, and I had a little look at it as I came off the mountain, and I was 34 minutes quicker than my previous best. And I was on such a high rather than, well, that's over, I'm going to the morgue now. I was on such a high. It was a fantastic experience, no hypothermia, no downside to it at all. And that was one of the things that I feel this is what the Wim Hof method has got me to. So, yeah, I can absolutely justify the benefits of it. It's a fantastic experience.
So are you now going to be coaching others in this method, or are you going to be, what, now that you've been to Poland, and how long were you in Poland? Was it a week or 5 days or a week in Poland?
6 days.
6 days
it was.
Yeah.
So that the idea now is to set up workshops to introduce people to the method, tell them what it's all about, the history, the timeline of Wim's own practice, an introduction to the breathing techniques and the cold exposure techniques as well. So sort of rounding everything up so people can go away and do their own practice.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Now that sounds really, and you find, like you say, you find that this kind of fits well and links and complements all the other stuff that you were already doing beforehand, because it is so well linked, through nature and through the nature of the human body and evolution and all the rest of it. It kind of works well with all the walking you do and all of the outdoor activities and the forest bathing and all that kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely, it fits seamlessly in with that.
Yeah, brilliant. This is good, Pete, isn't it? This is I don't know if you're sold on the cold stuff, but you certainly like the outdoor stuff and the breathing and everything, don't you?
Yeah, I just have to sit in my flat and I get cold exposure, so I'm all right because it's freezing in here. But yeah, no, I mean I've tried like cold showers and stuff like that. The thing it makes me think about is what you say about when like the hypothermia thing and the gasp reflex and stuff like that is for people. It can be a lifesaver, can't it? Because that's why people drown in cold water, isn't it? Because like they fall in and then they're like that, and all of a sudden you've swallowed a load of water and that's it, you're over. So it would help people with that, which, you might be like, well, when are you going to end up in a situation like that? And it's like, you never know, do you? I've got a friend who's got a dog who ran out across a lake and fell in. So he had to go and get the dog out of this lake, and he obviously got freezing cold water, and he's fine, but he doesn't do any of this stuff, and he's actually okay. But like if he was, it would be easier to do that, wouldn't it? So just funny little situations that people can end up in that can be super dangerous, but could be helped with little things like this. And I say little things, not meaning what you've done is a little thing. It's like it's just little things like having a cold shower every day.
It is very simple. It's very basic
Exactly.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But his commitment, you say about the guy going in after his dog, there's a time in our lives, and the classic one is you hear about these young mothers when a car has rolled onto their child. They lift that car up. Because the adrenaline and the old DNA of short-term shock, acute shock, kicks in, and they lift that up. Once the adrenaline comes down, they have been injured themselves. But at that time, that is all that matters, is saving that child. And it's that primal instinct that kicks in, like the fella with his dog. But obviously, he then got bit hypothermic, and that was dangerous for him. But at that moment, that time, all we can think of
Yeah.
is that. But if you've had experience of it, it makes life a hell of a lot easier. Yeah.
We
I think
spoke
it's
about
like,
that. We spoke
yeah,
about that with Paul McElroy, didn't we? About like, you know, your body has the capability of breaking your strength. If you innovate 100% of all your muscles, you'll break your bones. So that lady
Yeah.
who picks the car up, it's always a lady. Why is it not a bloke? Because blokes can't pick cars up either. They're going to hurt themselves as well, aren't they? You know what I mean? It's always a lady or a grandma. It always goes to an extreme, doesn't it? But anyway, but they pick it up and it's like, right, okay, they had that, but like you say, their ligaments and tendons and that are all ruptured, and they've torn muscles and stuff like that, because it is actually dangerous for you to be able to do that, unless you're some sort of strongman who's trained and put all the weight on and all that sort of stuff to be able to do that. Exactly.
I was just gonna say, actually, this ties in well. The whole with the last two episodes we've had with Paul McElroy talking about perpetual strength and his comfort zone expansion, and that really is the kind of, I suppose, the message for the cold stuff and the cold exposure. It's expanding that comfort zone, isn't it? It's doing
Yes.
a little bit and then getting comfortable with that, or more comfortable with it, and then doing a little bit more, either in terms of longer duration in the water or a colder temperature, or a bit of both eventually. But it's kind of very much the same, isn't it? And like, it is similar to increasing your strength, increasing your fitness. The way you would program to get stronger or to get fitter is almost the way you need to approach the cold exposure initially. But then once you are once you are strong from training for years, or once you are well adapted to the cold from expanding your comfort zone for years, then you can just like yourself. I can just get in the water now that used to invoke a gasp response, and just get in it and just go straight under and just be relatively comfortable, because you've taken the time to lower that very, very gradually. Do you put your head under as well, Nick? Do you go right under? Because you've got a nice head of hair. I mean, do you get your hair wet, or it doesn't matter to me really?
I don't at the moment. It's something I'm going to start doing when it gets really cold, I think.
Yeah.
In the shower, obviously. Interesting enough, I can now have the shower on full cold and stand directly under it with the pressure on head, which used to be very painful, and I can do that for 2, 3 minutes, not a problem at all. So from that perspective, yeah. But in the tub, no. I prefer when I'm in the tub to go into pretty much first attention and just switch the brain mind off and do just sort of eagle eyes and taking in the whole surroundings, and meditate there rather than do that. But it's something I'm going to start doing. Yeah.
Because there was something I was going to say. I think I spoke to Pete about this when I got back I was in Iceland in November, and on one of the mornings that the events, I was out there for the Magnus Classic Strongman Comp, and one of the events one day was, or the events on one day were at this beach, and there were, I won't say hundreds, but there were probably 50 or 60 local Icelandics. The beach literally was covered in ice. There was sheets of ice on the sand, and the sea must have been absolutely freezing. But there must be 50 or 60 people going in, swimming in the water in groups, lots of them going in, coming out onto the beach and doing things like air squats, body weight squats, press ups on the beach, doing some of the horse stance and the movement, marching in place, going back in the water. And it is incredible that these people, I've never seen so many. When I go to beaches in the UK sometimes, and I go in the sea in the winter, there's usually a few people there, like there's a group of maybe 6 or 7. But this was it was a weekend. I think it was a Saturday, and it was obviously a proper ritual that these people did, every weekend, in the sea. It was fantastic to see. It really was.
And there's something in that when we're doing the group activities in Poland, the energy from the group is undescribable. It's absolutely phenomenal. The energy you're picking up from every other individual in that group, because the mindset is there, the commitment to doing the cold plunge, it's there. For example, we're in this pool that Wim uses. It's his one he likes to use, and he takes his groups there at the bottom of a waterfall, and it's got granite sides to this pool. And we're in a circle in the water there for about 15, 20 minutes. I have no idea how long we're in there for in the end, but we're all, that we were doing that. And the resonance coming off the water, off the rocks, just building up and up and up. It's getting deeper and longer and more resonant, the sound, as I say. And that energy bouncing back off of everything was just an incredible experience. And it helps keep you set in that place and in that mindset to get through. It's something else. When you're in a group doing it, it's a fantastic experience.
I think that's like universal, doing like anything in groups, like, like the walking group stuff that I do and everything, is people can go along and chat about anything they like, or in like something like that, they're all there going through something that's hard, something that's uncomfortable. But if you're doing it with other people who are experiencing the same thing, you realize you're not on your own. So in that one, you're putting yourself in discomfort. But some people just they try to have a most comfortable life they can, but they live in discomfort because of any like circumstances in their lives, right? Whereas if you think you're the only person going through it, but then if you find another bunch of people who are all going through similar things, everyone's got their own struggles and all that. And if you can find a group of people who aren't going to sit there and whinge about it and talk about it and be like, so everyone brings each other down, but like, no, here's what I'm doing to overcome it, or here's what I've experienced, knowing it's not just me. It creates a massive positive effect, I think, on everybody.
Because if you work on your own healing, then you can come from those depths to help other people with theirs.
Yep, absolutely.
Even from the basics, how good cold immersion is for injury recovery or muscle recovery after exercise. You feel a little bit broken when you've done something very harsh, don't you, exercise-wise? You get yourself in a cold shower, cold plunge, and you straight away you feel great just from something small like that. So imagine that over a much deeper experience and what it can do for that.
It's interesting. I was talking to someone else in the gym earlier as well. We touched on kind of, I suppose, marketing and the it was Blue Monday, wasn't it? You mentioned, Pete. I think that was when we were recording. Was that it was? I think it was when we were recording. You mentioned Blue Monday being a thing, but there's also this thing where, and I've been seeing a few bits lately, and I've said this for years, and I've heard it many times, where at the moment in probably the England in North America, we're meant to be in peak, cold and flu season, and it's like everyone's meant to be, and I keep saying this, and I, like you, Nick, I do not, and I say this quite openly to everyone, I do not get ill. I've had my business for 17 years, and I've not been sick, ill. I don't get coughs, colds, flus. And I think, though, part of that is because I have a deep belief that I won't get ill because I don't want to be off work and run my own business. So I just do not get ill. And this kind of cold and flu season, I saw something that said we're not in cold and flu season. We're in like low vitamin D, high alcohol, high sugar season for Christmas, New Year. So many people that go, we record. I'll let the professional genie out of the bag. We're recording this a few weeks previous to when it goes out. So
what?
Sorry.
Oh God, no.
So
no.
we're in
dare you?
Sorry. So we're in this period of time where lots of people I know who may be members of the gym and friends and family and whatnot are coming down with colds and flus, and they're ill and they're not well, and also, so it's low vitamin D. We're not getting the sun. People are not getting out in nature because it's cold. People are staying indoors a lot more. They're not getting outside in fresh air. They're not getting vitamin D. They're drinking a lot more alcohol than they normally would. They're eating, junk food, sugar, sweets, chocolates, whatever, cakes, all that kind of stuff. and it kind of has this effect, and they're not getting out in the fresh air and moving around as much, and people are getting ill. So it's lowering the immunity, the natural immunity. So if there is something that you may pick up, you're going to pick it up and get unwell. So I think that the angle that you've come at this at, in terms of like almost like an immunity booster and a fortification system to fortify yourself against, illness and weakness, I'm going to say, um, is great. I mean, and you've obviously felt that yourself, because you said usually you would, pick up a few things, and since you've been doing all of this, you've had nothing.
Yeah. Ironically, the one cold I did get, I caught on the plane coming back from Poland. Can you believe it?
Thing
I
is,
was actually
so what?
quite pleased in a way, because it didn't affect me or last as long as it would have done in previous years, where, like I said, I'd get 5 or 6 like that. I actually fought it off a lot easier, and I was quite happy to have had that cold, if it makes any sense.
Mm,
I could see how I
It's
dealt with it.
it's
yeah.
funny though, because again, James is saying what he's saying, but like, you don't work in an office and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of people get colds from that sort of thing and all of that, right? But you've got kids who go to school, and they're little germ machines, aren't they? So because I don't get ill. I mean, or if I do, it doesn't stop me doing anything. I don't get ill where I'm in bed or anything like that. And I haven't done for years. But I used to when I worked in an office, but I used to also drink and smoke, and it was a debaucherous lifestyle. So imagine that.
And you were working in an air conditioned office, and
Yes. So
yeah.
but anyway,
Yeah.
so people might say, well, you don't get ill because you're not in an office. And actually, I spend most of the day, just me and the dog, and we're kind of on our own, and we're outside and stuff like that. And it's like, yes, it is part of that. However, Sean works in a school. So when she gets, and she never actually gets ill because we're old school, and like, she doesn't do illness. She'll just crack on.
Yeah.
However, in the last couple of weeks, I've started supplementing. I've supplemented vitamin D in the past, but I haven't really done it properly. So I looked it up, and it's like you have to have it with K2 and MK7 or whatever, and then magnesium and all that sort of stuff. So I looked it up, and then just bought some vitamin D3 with K2 and MK7. Now, this isn't recommending this to anyone or whatever. This is personal experience. And I had that, and then I got some magnesium tablets as well. And I've just been doing that every day. And my mood's been so much better because I'm, like, I just naturally feel better because even though I spend most of my time outside, if I've got a hat on and a hoodie, you're not getting any vitamin D, right?
Yeah, you're covered up.
So Sean, and she's going through the menopause at the minute and what have you. So obviously she's been having low mood and a bit of HRT and that. But I said to her, try some. I put them out for her in the mornings, and she started remembering to have them every day. And she said, like, even after 2 or 3 days, she felt totally different, like much better. She wasn't falling asleep on the sofa in the evening and all this sort of stuff. So kind of what you're saying, Nick, I think is like, it's a natural supplement, and you can start doing it at any time, and it costs nothing if you have a cold shower. In fact, it'll save you money on hot water.
Same cold bills, gas bills,
but you know what I
sure.
mean. So it's a natural supplement for things like for something to make you feel better. So I just think it's brilliant.
And the same for you, being in the outdoors all the time. You're in a woody environment. I don't know if you remember before, but the chemicals the trees give off, the phytoncides and the terpenes and things like that, you're absorbing, and that is giving your immune system a huge boost. When you're out in the wet and you feel that petrichor smell coming up, where the rain's hitting the ground and releasing those chemicals, you're taking all that in. So you've given yourself a head start. It's a very similar thing, isn't it? It's getting the nature on your side. So doing the breath work, all the benefits I said previously, but also gives you a natural high to help with the mood boost and the energy boost there. And we know what the cold exposure does to you. Once you've finished it and you're rewarming, whatever, you just feel absolutely buzzing, like there's not a feeling like it in the world, So there's very natural ways that Holland and Barrett's can't put in a packet, fortunately, to do it yourself. But yeah, supplementing vitamin D, I think it's vital this time of year for a lot of people.
It's made a massive change to me, because I was looking at it back at the beginning of last year, 2024. Hang on, right? Yeah. But it rained for like 6 months straight, every day.
Yeah.
And I wasn't depressed, but I was like, for God's sake, like every day I was looking at like I've got to go out in that again, and it was really getting to me.
There is a
And
limit.
I don't know, like that might happen again this year. Who knows? But hopefully it'll be a little bit better, just because of that one little thing that I've done. So yeah.
It's another saying, isn't it? Where they say if you could, is in terms of exercise, really, they say if you could bottle or make a pill that gave you all of the benefits of exercise to your mental health, your physical health, your well-being, it would be priceless. It would be an absolute miracle when you've got access to that naturally, whether that be just going out for a walk or all this kind of stuff. And in the same way with the breathing exercises, the cold exposure, like you said, it's free or very low cost, and the benefits that you can get from all of that in terms of the the mood elevating, the kind of the antidepressant kind of effect, all of that is if you could bottle that or put it in a pill, without any side effects, like exercise done sensibly, and what you're talking about done sensibly without any negative side effects, it would be worth a fortune. And we all have access to that all the time, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And it's not the same for everybody. You can't be inclusive, but most of us, we have the choice to do it. And it's up to us whether we choose to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, so it then becomes comfortable, or we just say, oh, you know what, I'll just turn the heating up.
Yeah.
That's our choice at the end of the day.
It's funny, actually, because
low cost. Yes.
No, you finish, Nick. You finish what you're saying.
Yeah, in terms of the low cost, what excites me about that is that makes it accessible to people who have not got a big income. If you can get someone to literally get high in their own supply and feel better in themselves, but not have to worry about it affecting the household budget or anything, that it's a big thing that most people can benefit from if you can find a way for them to access it through qualified instructors and what have you, and the right channels and things like that should be on the NHS.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate with work at the moment. I've just transferred from fitness after 18 years to healthy communities, which means we're taking activity to groups of people that haven't got the access to gyms, leisure centres, etc. And the skill set I've managed to pick up over the last few years, I can now transfer that to a wider audience, and it's not going to cost them a penny. I'm really looking forward to it.
No, this is fantastic. And I think from speaking before, Nick, I know when we spoke last time, we'll start to wrap up now, but you weren't prolific on social media. I presume you're not still, but that was part of your, I was going to say it, that was part of your charm and part of your authenticity, because you were talking about, disengaging from technology and being more at one with nature. So then if you spent all your time online, it would be a bit different. So it kind of was very authentic. But are you still, what I'm getting at is, if people want to find out more about what you're doing and things, and I would like probably to have a conversation with you about maybe doing some kind of Wim Hof workshop at Unique Results. We can maybe talk about that. Which would be fantastic. But yeah, if people did want to find out more about you and what you do and stuff, is there a channel? Is there a way people can do that, or is it just email you?
At the moment, it's best to email, but I've made huge advances on the Facebook page. I've now put a profile picture and a background picture on it. So this is leaps and bounds for me.
Here's something that was absolutely hilarious. Was James usually finds the pictures for the what we put on for the podcast episodes and stuff, and it's always of the person. He was trying to find one of you, and he goes, "The only one I could find, you're like standing, you're behind a tree. You can't even see."
Yeah, and I think I said the tree's the star, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Um,
so what's your email? If you just give it out over, and we'll put it in the thing as well. But what would people do?
yeah, it's healthy NHY @gmail.com.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Um, and if I could just put one more thing in there, James, we're not ones to sit still with our development, Catherine and myself, as you know. And so the next step on, we just started our shamanic healing training now as well. So there's a lot of different things we're going to integrate into all of this. The the working with nature
Mm.
for health business going forward. So maybe catch up with you again somewhere down the line on that and tell you how that's going.
Definitely. No, I think this is it's really good because it's like you say, it's different, but it's connected. You know, it's
Yeah.
about it's I mentioned I can't remember who we had on a few weeks back, but I said that Health Oddity, the reason we started it was to try and give information and talk to people that was not the mainstream. You know, it's not what you'd maybe walk into like your Virgin Active or your local council gym or your Nuffield Health or whatever. And you know, so it's different. So we do talk about, you know, stone lifting outside and walking
Yeah.
and you know, and things like this, you know, the forest bathing and the Wim Hof method and different ways of exercising, you know, Indian clubs and maces and kettlebells and slightly
Yes.
different things.
Yeah.
So it all kind of ties in and it's perfect because especially the stuff you're talking about, this re-engaging, rediscovering nature and our natural state is fantastic. And I think it's something, like I say, it's low cost or no cost. And it's something accessible to just about everybody at some level, you know, which,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. Brilliant. Excellent. So that was really good. That was excellent. Anything to wrap up, Pete, before we close? No. Nah.
No, no.
But no, it's good.
It's good. What I like about it is, I mean, you could talk about this stuff for hours, but you don't need to because everything we've talked about there, it's like we say, it's all accessible. It's like it's as simple as, you know, the way the I've got nothing to say. The way the cold training goes, you can look at it in terms of sets, reps, weight, you know, intensity, volume, density. So, you know, the weight is kind of the temperature. So if you lower the temperature too much, you're adding too much weight. Whereas you can add more volume by just doing stuff at, I don't know, 10 degrees for longer, right? So that's like lifting. If you've got 100 kilo deadlift, like the Paul McElroy example, you know, you can lift 75 kilos for 20 sets of 2 reps or whatever. So that's a longer period, but you're doing more. So you just spend a little bit of time in it 10 degrees and then and then up it. And then once you get to a certain, like you said, like 10 minutes, you just up the weight, which is going down to 9 degrees, isn't it? And what have you. So if people are worried about, if people want to know how to program it, it's like, well, just do it like your strength training, but
Yeah, I think it's a great way of putting it, actually. It really simplifies it. I think it's, yeah, good way to look at it.
Excellent.
That's where my head went straight away.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much for joining us again, Nick. That was again, it was really kind of refreshing, interesting, inclusive, and yeah, just again a bit of a call to action that we've got more power and we've got more access to some things than we think sometimes. You know, that we've got a lot that we can do, which doesn't cost a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of time. Yes, Pete.
There's something I can highly recommend as well, which I did in October. I told you about it, didn't I? The Cheltenham Lidos. So if anyone, like, you know, Lidos are outdoor pools. They might do it in other ones in the country, I don't know. But in Cheltenham, which is like 45 minutes up the road, at the end of the year, they do a big deep clean. So you're allowed to take your dogs along. And that was great because it was freezing cold. And it was just so much fun as well, you know. So after that day, we were buzzing for about a week. It was great. So there you go.
Fantastic.
Things like that.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you all for listening or watching. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially if you are on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to get some more reviews on Apple Podcasts, and then we will read them out online, read them out on the show, and send out some free merch to you. either t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, something like that. We will be back next week for episode 231 with Laura Shanks, who is going to be talking to us about her High Rocks journey. She is a lady who is in her mid-40s, married, couple of kids, career, but has taken on High Rocks and got to really, really good levels. She podiumed out in Sweden a couple of weeks back. And is doing incredible things there. She's doing really, really well. So Laura, a very, very down-to-earth, friendly, lovely lady, coming on with us next week for episode 231. So thank you very much, Nick. We'll definitely catch up with you again about your next round of training that you're doing. And I will talk to you as well about potentially a Wim Hof workshop, if that's okay.
Fantastic, James. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Brilliant. And thank you very much, Mr. Peter Lant.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And and we will see you next week. Until then, bye-bye.